The PlayStation Vita came out in 2012 and it took to 2023 to people to really get invested and turn this thing into a machine. Let me go ahead and show you everything you could do on a PlayStation Vita in 2023. It's actually pretty insane. So diving into it, as you see, we got this awesome The Last of Us custom theme. That is a thing we will talk about later, but there's a bunch of different modifications on the PlayStation Vita. This is a quick pan over of most of them that I have on my Vita. We're gonna go ahead and start off with PKGJ. This is one of the best modifications on the system. This allows you to go ahead and download any PlayStation Vita game that you want, any region, any language. As you see, by pressing triangle, you can go ahead and look at this filter and filter it by however you want to, region, size, date, doesn't matter. And you can go ahead and press X on any game that you're looking for and simply install game. Next is Vita Shell. This is a very important one. It's not the most fun, but it's very important. This is the app that allows you to transfer things from your PC straight to your PlayStation Vita. Very quick and easy, so you're definitely going to want this on your PlayStation Vita. Next, which is personally my favorite modification on the PlayStation Vita, is Adrenaline. Adrenaline basically turns your PlayStation Vita and turns it into a Sony PSP. Loading up this screen just brings back the good times of the PSP, and to have it on the PlayStation Vita is awesome. And what you can do is go ahead and load up that memory stick and go ahead and put any PSP games that you want on your PlayStation Vita. Using Vita Shell, you can go ahead and transfer all your PSP backups onto your PlayStation Vita so you can enjoy them on the PlayStation Vita. We all know there's so many great games on the PSP and in the PSP library, so go ahead and enjoy your time and put it on your PlayStation Vita. And as you see, they run perfectly, and it's just awesome to have this ability on the PlayStation Vita. Next is, of course, with the PSP abilities, you can go ahead and play PlayStation 1 games on your PlayStation Vita. Any PS1 game you want, just make sure you have the game and you can go ahead and back it up to your PlayStation Vita. And as you see, we got a bunch of great classics like Gex, the Resident Evil, Silent Hills, Parasite Eves, a lot of good horror stuff because that's what I like. But of course, we get to have the classic Crash Bandicoot, and running this on the PlayStation Vita, you can have it full screen, so it's the full PlayStation Vita screen and it runs great. Some of the PS1 games you can actually use a PlayStation Vita analog stick, which is an awesome ability that the PlayStation Vita has. Next is the VitaDB downloader. This is pretty much the modification that allows you to download homebrew from different people. People upload different things to this app and you can go ahead and download it and try different things. Some you can simply download straight to your system and play. Some you have to go ahead and get some external things from, PC and transfer over from the Vita Shell. But there's a lot of different little mini games that people made themselves and put on this app, and you can go ahead and download it and put it right to your system and go ahead and enjoy these creations. Next is the Adrenaline Bubbles Manager. We were talking about Adrenaline earlier, where you can have all your PSP and PS1 games, but if you don't feel like loading into Adrenaline every time, you can simply use the Adrenaline Bubbles Manager and have all your PSP and PS1 games on your home screen. So all you gotta do is click on the bubble and start game. Next is the bunch of different cool emulators on the PlayStation Vita. This one is the Game Boy Advance one, so if you want to play any Game Boy Advance games on your PlayStation Vita, you can go ahead and do that. Next is the Nintendo 64 one, which allows you to play Nintendo 64 games on the PlayStation Vita. Next is this Super Nintendo one. It doesn't have a cover, but just know it's Super Nintendo. And we even have a Dreamcast emulator on the PlayStation Vita. As you see, this is the Nintendo 64 emulator, and as you see, we have a good list of games. This is the ones that I chose to go ahead and back up to my PlayStation Vita. A bunch of different classics from Mario's, Pokemon's, Smash Bros, Yoshi Story, etc. Let's go ahead and load up Super Mario 64, and look how quick it go ahead and starts up pretty much right away, and boom, you're on the home screen of Super Mario 64 on your PlayStation Vita. And yeah, these actually run great. There is a list online to make sure that some games run good, some games don't run as good, so make sure you do your own research for that. Next is the Game Boy Advance one. It's not as pretty, it's simply just a list of your backups, and you go ahead and load it up, and bang, as you see, Pokemon Fire Red version, which is awesome. And yeah, this runs great. You can go ahead and do full screen. I use the little template. As you see, the Game Boy Advance is on the side. I think that's a neat touch. Next is the Super Nintendo emulator. Again, not very pretty. You just have the list of backups of your games on your PlayStation Vita, and you want to go ahead and load them up, and they pretty much load up automatically. Pretty simple and quick, and bang, you're into some Donkey Kong icon country. And man, doesn't it feel awesome to play these games on the PlayStation Vita wherever you want. And lastly is the Dreamcast emulator. Unfortunately, this one doesn't really run too well yet. There's only a small amount of games that actually run good so far on the PlayStation Vita, so this is definitely a work in progress. Next, we got some awesome ports. As you see, we got the GTAs from PS2, Bully, Max Payne, even GTA Chinatown Wars from like the DS, I believe that was on. And these are awesome that you are able to play all of these on the PlayStation Vita, and all these ports run really smooth and fluid. As you see, we're hopping into some Max Payne, and as you see, it looks really good, it feels really good, you see no spikes, it runs fluid. And I definitely recommend the Max Payne port on the PlayStation Vita. Definitely happy to see this one on the console. Next, how can we forget the classic GTA San Andreas? Playing this on my PlayStation Vita, I actually beat about half the game on my Vita personally, and it's just awesome to be able to play this on the PlayStation Vita. As you see the startup screen, or the startup cutscene of San Andreas, I should say. But loading into it, it runs fluid, really no issues at all, and honestly looks great. It looks better than the PS2 version on the PlayStation Vita. I'm sure the Vita itself kind of smooths it out a little bit, but yeah, it's just awesome to play this game on the PlayStation Vita. And yeah, the Vita just has so many capabilities in 2023. It's actually insane what it could do, and these only range from anywhere from 120 to 160 in today's market, so I definitely think it's worth it for all the things you could do. A Switch goes for $200 to $300 depending if you want to get the Lite or the hybrid, and for 150 bucks, I think the Vita is definitely worth it. There's just so many things you could do. Obviously, you have to buy a couple little things like the SD to Vita or the micro SD that I mentioned in the video, but all around I think it's definitely worth it. You can do so many things, and modders and hackers aren't done messing with this bad boy. There's a bunch of things coming to the Vita, and the community is active and strong. But yeah, man, let me know in the comments what you thought about this video. This is my first long form content video on this channel, and let me know what else you're trying to see on the channel. But anyways, I'll see y'all next time.